On the afternoon of March 24, 2015, a 30-year-old man named Aaron Quinn reported that his girlfriend, Denise Huskins, had been kidnapped from their bedroom the previous night. Local authorities responded quickly, heading straight to the apartment where the incident took place. Upon arrival, the officers encountered a puzzling crime scene. The screen near the back door had been slashed with a knife, and the door lock appeared to have been tampered with, suggesting a forced entry. The bedroom on the second floor was in complete disarray, with blankets and sheets piled haphazardly on the bed. On the floor, they found unusual items: swim goggles taped shut and an empty bottle of cough syrup. But what stood out most was a square section of the bedroom floor outlined with red tape, within which a chair had been placed, seemingly positioned to face something. Oddly enough, a camera had been set up directly in front of the chair, yet it was unplugged and not connected to the internet, serving no apparent purpose other than decoration. No fingerprints or other DNA evidence were found at the scene, and no signs of a struggle were visible. When questioned, the neighbors claimed they hadn't heard any screams or disturbances the night of the incident, which added to the overall mystery. But Aaron's version of events made things even stranger. He recounted how he had woken up suddenly in the middle of the night to the glare of a flashlight. Dazed and confused, he noticed a red dot dancing across his chest, something that immediately reminded him of the laser sights used on firearms. Filled with fear, his instinct was to protect Denise, but before he could act, a masked man pointed a gun at his head and ordered him to bind his girlfriend's hands and feet with zip ties provided by the intruder. After Aaron complied, the man tied him up as well. The intruder then covered their eyes with the swim goggles, which were sealed shut with tape, effectively blinding them. Aaron said they were forced to hand over their bank cards, PIN numbers, social security numbers, and even their phones. The kidnapper then used their phones to text their bosses, explaining that they wouldn't be able to come to work due to feeling unwell. Things took a darker turn when the intruder made both Aaron and Denise drink an entire bottle of medicine, presumably the cough syrup found at the scene. The sedative effects of the medicine soon knocked them out. Aaron said that, after he lost consciousness, he was dragged to a chair positioned within the red tape square, and when he awoke, the goggles were removed. The intruder told him not to leave the square, warning that if he did, his girlfriend's life would be in immediate danger. Pointing to the unplugged camera, the kidnapper claimed it was monitoring his every move. To further manipulate the situation, he placed headphones on Aaron's head and played soothing music, a jarring contrast to the tense situation. After issuing his final threats, the kidnapper took Denise downstairs and vanished without a trace. Aaron, still disoriented from the drugs, remained in the square for hours, eventually succumbing to exhaustion and falling asleep. It wasn't until the following afternoon that he woke up, cut the zip ties binding him, and finally called the police. The officers who interviewed Aaron were left baffled by his bizarre story of abduction. Every detail seemed to defy logic, making them question the truth behind his claims. Drawing a square on the floor and forcing him to stay inside it? It felt like the kidnapper had seen too many Western movies and imagined Aaron was someone important. and Aaron had sat there for more than 10 hours without moving. The officers were skeptical. The biggest question on their minds was the motive. Why would the kidnapper go to such lengths to abduct someone? As Aaron struggled to convince the police that his story was real, a message suddenly appeared on his phone. It was from the kidnapper demanding a ransom. "See, I'm not lying," Aaron insisted. But the ransom amount, $12,000, was oddly specific. Whether it was a lot or not, the officers found it strange that the kidnapper would request such an exact figure. This made the police suspicious, wondering if Aaron could be involved in some way. Maybe he had harmed his girlfriend and was now playing the victim to deflect suspicion. Aaron strongly denied this, insisting that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. "How could I have sent a message to myself right in front of you?" he asked. But the experienced detectives weren't buying it. They knew about ways to schedule texts to be sent later. For the next several hours, the interrogation continued. Aaron was hooked up to a lie detector, questioned repeatedly, and even had lawyers consulted, but nothing conclusive came from it. Meanwhile, something else odd happened. The local newspaper received a voicemail from a woman claiming to be the missing Denise. She said she had been kidnapped but was still alive. To prove her identity, she mentioned her favorite band from her first concert and the name of her high school boyfriend. However, her voice was calm and steady, as if she were talking about someone else's situation, not her own. This made the police even more suspicious. Who could stay so composed while supposedly being held captive? The police then began interviewing the couple's colleagues and friends. What they uncovered was a scandal. It turned out Aaron and Denise were both physical therapists at the same local hospital. Even more shocking, Aaron's ex-fiancée, Andrea, also worked there. Aaron and Andrea had been engaged, planning a wedding, but things fell apart when Andrea cheated on him. Though they had broken up, the two still worked together and saw each other regularly. Even after Aaron started dating Denise, it seemed he hadn't completely cut ties with Andrea. Strangely, Aaron recalled that during the kidnapping, the masked man had repeatedly asked him for names, and at one point, even called him Andrea. Could it be that the kidnapper had intended to target Aaron's ex-fiancée, but accidentally took the wrong person? Despite this new information, the police remained convinced that there was no real kidnapper, just a love triangle gone wrong. They theorized that one or more people might have concocted this whole scheme to eliminate a romantic rival or add excitement to their lives. Though they continued with formal investigations, deploying search dogs and distributing flyers, their focus shifted increasingly to Aaron as a suspect. Aaron, clinging to his story, continued to insist on his innocence, but after hours of questioning, the police began to lose patience. Legally, they could hold him for 48 hours before charging him, so they decided to wait. Aaron wasn't put in a prison uniform, but he was given minimal food and water and confined to a small cell under constant pressure. Then came shocking news. Denise had been found alive. Media reports stated that she had been discovered in Huntington Beach, over 400 miles away from where the kidnapping was reported. While this might have seemed like a stroke of luck, Denise's sudden reappearance only made Aaron look more suspicious. Typically, kidnappers release their victims in remote areas, far from civilization, to create a delay before the police can reach them. But in this case, the kidnapper had dropped Denise off in an alley near her parents' house. When the police found her, Denise's wallet, cash, and credit cards were all untouched, which contradicted Aaron's claim that the abduction had been financially motivated. More importantly, no ransom had ever been paid. So why had the kidnapper released her? Denise told police that, after being taken, her eyes were covered, and she was brought to a small, quiet house where the windows had been completely covered with cardboard. She said the kidnapper, who wore a black hoodie, assaulted her inside the house. They stayed there for almost 2 days before the kidnapper told her to drink cough syrup, blindfolded her with the taped-up goggles again, and drove her away. Disoriented by fear and the effects of the medication, Denise couldn't tell how long they had been driving, but after being told to count to 20 and then open her eyes, she found herself near her parents' home. The police found Denise's story even more unbelievable than Aaron's. They required her to undergo a medical examination, particularly focusing on evidence related to the alleged assault. Surprisingly, her physical exam revealed no signs of injury, and there were no traces of male DNA on or inside her body. Denise explained this by saying that during the assault, the kidnapper's genitals had felt odd, as though they weren't real, possibly a toy. This led police to suspect that the kidnapper might not have been a man at all. The police began to suspect that Denise might have voluntarily left home and fabricated the entire story to avoid the consequences of her actions. How could a case so ridiculous be real? A kidnapper who didn't want money, didn't want the person, and simply held her for 2 days as if playing the role of a modern-day Good Samaritan. Denise refused to take the lie detector test the police insisted on. She angrily declared, "I'm the victim here. Instead of finding my kidnapper, why are you harassing me?" Her outburst only fueled the officer's suspicion. After all, why would a victim resist an investigation unless there was something to hide? Not long after, the police held a press conference. The chief, clearly annoyed, told reporters that the entire case had been a hoax. He accused the couple of wasting police resources and planning an elaborate kidnapping scheme for attention. Both Aaron and Denise were formally charged with fraud and public resource misuse. Suddenly, the once respected therapists found themselves branded as notorious scammers. Their jobs were suspended, and their reputations were tarnished. The local community turned against them, even comparing their story to the plot of a recent blockbuster movie. But the story didn't end there. 8 days after the couple's charges were filed, a small-town newspaper received a mysterious email. The sender, claiming to be the real kidnapper, mocked the police for being fooled so easily and vowed to continue targeting others. The email contained 2 photographs, one of a toy gun with a laser pointer taped to it, and another showing the corner of a room with windows sealed by cardboard. These specific details were never made public and were known only to the victims and the investigators handling the case. With years of experience in journalism, the newspaper editor noticed that the email was written with an unusually precise legal tone, different from what you'd expect from an average person or even 2 medical professionals. Yet, the police refused to acknowledge the authenticity of the email, suspecting it to be a distraction crafted by the couple. They argued that since the couple had hired lawyers, it wouldn't be impossible for someone to write the email for them. 3 months passed, and the case of the supposed fake kidnapping and the real fraud remained entangled in legal proceedings. Then, less than 80 miles from where Denise had allegedly been abducted, there was a home invasion and attempted kidnapping. When police arrived at the scene to gather evidence, they discovered something eerily familiar: swimming goggles sealed with duct tape. Due to the high-profile nature of the earlier case, the police initially thought it could be a copycat criminal, using the same method to blindfold the victims. However, after speaking with the victims' families, they were stunned to discover striking similarities between the 2 cases. This time, it was a family of 3, the parents in one room and their 14-year-old daughter in the adjoining bedroom. The father was awakened in the middle of the night by a flashlight beam, just like in the previous case, and saw the same red laser dot. A tall man in a black hood pointed a gun at the father's head and demanded that he tie his wife's hands and feet with zip ties. Every step mirrored the earlier incident, but with one critical difference. The father did not comply. Instead, he fought back fiercely, using a bedside lamp to strike the intruder. Taking advantage of the situation, the mother quickly hid in the bathroom. The father then yelled to his wife to grab a gun from the bathroom, though there was no gun in the house, nor had either of them ever used one. The bluff worked, scaring the intruder, who fled the house. The father chased the man outside, where he saw him drive off in a white car. It was only then that the couple realized their daughter had been tied up in her room, her hands and feet bound, and her eyes covered. It seemed the intruder's plan had been to incapacitate the parents first, then abduct the daughter. Fortunately, the parents' brave actions thwarted what could have been a devastating outcome. Although photos of the family were never released, reports mentioned that the father was of Asian descent. Due to the intruder's hurried escape, the crime scene was not as carefully cleaned as it had been when Denise was kidnapped. The police found DNA from the attacker on the bedside lamp, as well as a suspicious Samsung phone near the door. The phone was registered to a 38-year-old Californian man named Matthew Muller. Additionally, the police managed to recover deleted text messages and photos from the phone, including the $12,000 ransom demand sent to Denise's boyfriend. Using the location data from when the ransom message was sent, the police tracked down a vacation cabin owned by Muller. They immediately went there and found a white car parked outside, matching the description given by the Asian father in the second case. Without hesitation, they entered the property and found Matthew calmly sitting in the living room, hands raised, saying, "You finally found me." He offered no resistance and cooperated fully during his arrest. Inside the vacation cabin, police discovered a room where the windows were sealed with cardboard, perfectly matching the photos from the leaked email and Denise's description. They also found a replica gun, duct-taped swimming goggles, zip ties, and cough syrup mixed with sedatives. In Matthew's car, they uncovered a crucial piece of evidence, a blonde hair strand tangled in one of the zip ties. And whose blonde hair was it? None other than that of Denise. What's more, the data from Matthew's car showed that he had been near Denise's apartment on the night of March 24th and near her parents' home 2 days later, exactly coinciding with the times of her kidnapping and release. All the evidence pointed to the fact that Denise and her boyfriend had been telling the truth the entire time. However, when the police showed Matthew's photo to the couple for identification, they both claimed they had never seen him before and didn't display any hostility toward him. They were completely bewildered as to how they had become involved in this mess. So the big question remained, why did Matthew commit these heinous acts? The key to understanding his motive lay in Matthew's background. Police investigations revealed that Matthew came from a wealthy family. His father owned a large accounting firm in California, ensuring Matthew had been financially secure since birth. Despite his wealth, Matthew didn't squander his fortune. After finishing high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps, becoming a mechanic. His superiors praised his intelligence and diligence during his service. After leaving the military, Matthew was accepted into Harvard Law School, graduating with honors and becoming a licensed attorney. This explained why the newspaper editor had recognized the sophisticated language in the extortion letter. In 2012, a female intern at the law firm where Matthew worked accused him of sexual harassment. The case dragged on for over a year before Matthew settled privately, paying the woman a substantial sum. However, during the proceedings, the intern's testimony somehow leaked. She described Matthew as having deviant desires but lacking the physical ability to act on them, requiring tools to harass women. This revelation caused Matthew's reputation to plummet. His wife of 2 years also took advantage of the situation and divorced him. Afterward, Matthew left the firm and didn't renew his law license, effectively ending his legal career. He later tried his hand at sales but was soon fired for poor performance. The shadow of the harassment lawsuit haunted him, derailing his life. Though Matthew could have lived comfortably without working, he blamed the intern for ruining his career. His anger first targeted his ex-wife, but soon extended to all women. He saw the world as unfairly biased toward women, with both the legal system and public opinion siding against men. This sense of injustice fueled his desire for revenge, to prove that assumptions could be wrong. In the past 2 years, there had been over 30 reported home invasions in the San Francisco Bay Area, but nearly all the women who reported the incidents were dismissed as mentally unstable. Only 2 cases were filed, quickly buried among countless others. Matthew's appetite for humiliation grew, and targeting women alone no longer excited him. He found greater pleasure in humiliating men in front of their partners, not just causing harm but ensuring that they were ruined forever. If not for the brave actions of the Asian family who fought back, who knows how far Matthew's twisted plan would have escalated. After Matthew's arrest, his wealthy parents spared no expense in trying to absolve him, hiring top defense attorneys and even a renowned psychologist to argue that Matthew had severe mental health issues and possibly a split personality. But in the face of all these efforts, Matthew made a sudden decision. He chose to plead guilty to all charges. In his mind, he had achieved his goal. He had shattered people's trust in the police, the judicial system, and even women. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison for multiple offenses. As for Denise and her boyfriend, the fraud charges against them were officially dropped 2 days after Matthew's arrest. The city's police department issued a formal apology, and details of the case were finally released, clearing up the confusion. It turned out the entire narrative about a love triangle had been pure speculation by the media. In 2018, following a lengthy civil suit, the couple and the police department reached a settlement. They were awarded $2.5 million in damages for the emotional and reputational harm they had suffered due to the police's mishandling of the case. Fortunately, after enduring so much hardship, the couple married in September 2018. A year later, they welcomed their first daughter, followed by another girl in 2022. Now, the family of 4 enjoys a peaceful life in a small town, having moved past the dark chapter of their lives. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.